A wing is always inflated facing the wind. Facing the wind, you'll find it much easier to obtain the relative wind needed to create lift. It will also make shorter launch distances possible, which can be useful for certain sites. When launching, several different scenarios are possible. A headwind, the ideal situation. Using this configuration, orient your wing so that it's facing downhill and into the wind. A crosswind. The wind is no longer blowing along the launch axis. Launching is still possible, but it will require more skill. Orient your wing so that it's facing the wind and inflate it. Once the wing is inflated and stabilized over your head, adapt your launch run so that it brings you back into the launch axis. Launching with a tailwind is impossible. In a scenario where there isn't any wind, orient your wing so that it's lined up with the steepest slope. Don't hesitate to reposition your wing along its entire wingspan so that when you're ready to inflate it, its layout is ideal. Some pilots recommend laying it out in a slight V shape or in the shape of a horseshoe so that both halves of the wing inflate evenly. Considering the new orientation, reposition the harness in the center of the wing. Notice how Christopher has positioned himself. The lines are almost tensioned, which will make it easier for him to untangle them. Take hold of the risers at the carabiner and make sure they are untwisted. Hold the A-risers in front of you. Isolate the A-lines, then work your way towards the wing and verify that they are free of twists, tangles, knots and debris all the way to the leading edge. We can clearly see here that they are located underneath the other lines. You'll have to untwist the harness. Start out by correctly repositioning the lines, then continue to untwist them up to their base. This method makes it easy to figure out which way to spin the harness in order to eliminate the twist. New verification. Make sure the lines are free all the way to the leading edge. The harness is now on the ground without any twists. It's time to untangle the lines. As we saw earlier, Christopher isolates the A-lines and puts some tension on them as he works his way towards the wing. Often, you can verify that the lines are not tangled or knotted by simply putting tension on the lines. Do the same thing for each set of lines. Untangling the lines can be done rather quickly and easily if you put the right amount of tension on them. Christopher is now ready to put on his equipment and the harness. The pre-flight inspection begins. Remember to check your reserve parachute rubber bands as well as its handles to avoid pulling it by accident during the launch or the flight. You can put on and attach the harness. Inspect and fasten the leg straps at the same time. You should be able to slide your hand between your leg and the strap. Fasten the abdominal strap next, followed by the chest strap. the pre-flight continues. Christopher inspects his carabiners, then each quick link, and finally the connection of his brake handle. Now you're ready to grab your glider's controls. Let the risers hang down untwisted alongside your legs, unhook the brake handle, then go under the network of risers so you come up grasping the A risers. Then double check that the A risers are completely free up to the leading edge. In addition, make sure the brake line isn't blocked. Do the same thing for the other half of the wing. You're ready to launch. There are two different ways to inflate the wing, either facing the wing called reverse launch or with your back to it called forward launch. It's a good idea to master both techniques because each one has its advantages in different conditions. In general, use forward launch in light winds and reverse launch in wind over 10 km per hour. That way you'll be able to choose the most suitable technique according to the weather and the terrain. Let's first look at a forward launch with your back to the canopy. Pilots usually use it when there is little or no wind, since it provides continuity throughout the thrust, inflation, and launch run, and thus prevents the wing from collapsing. Jerome Cano, a test pilot with Ozone Paragliders, is going to take us through the steps and techniques of a flawless inflation. The wing is correctly laid out facing the wind. Then the pilot positions himself in its center. He's ready to give the thrust. You need to provide enough thrust so that the wing rises evenly until it's just over your head. Be careful, the thrust you'll give depends on the wind speed. If the wind is strong, especially when performing a reverse inflation, give very little thrust, otherwise you'll be yanked off the ground. The wing climbs until it is directly over your head. To prevent it from overrunning you, use the brakes to control it. Without this control, the wing will overrun you, lose its lift and collapse. At this point, you can visually inspect your wing to make sure it has the right shape and that there aren't any knots in the lines. Now's the time to decide whether to continue or abort the launch. You're ready to start your launch run. Notice Jerome's position. He is leaning forward with his shoulders sticking out beyond the risers. To abort your launch, pull the brakes all the way under your backside and continue to advance until the wing falls behind you. As you can see, a forward inflation is also possible in strong winds. However, a reverse inflation is more suitable for strong winds. It enhances the pilot's ability to control his wing. If he needs to reduce his force, he can walk uphill towards the wing without the risk of falling. Pilots tend to prefer this method since it lets them see the wing during the entire inflation process. Let's take a look at the two main techniques for grasping the risers. Start out by spinning to face the wing in the direction that seems most natural to you. The risers should be crossed in front of you. The first technique, known as cross-brake reverse launch, allows the pilot to inflate the canopy and then launch without letting go of the brake handles. Jerome takes the left brake handle in his left hand, then the right brake handle in his right hand. Then he grasps the risers in front of each hand. Let's go over again from the beginning how he grasps the handles and inflates the canopy. Jerome can launch without ever letting go of the handles. Notice the skill involved in each step: inflation, timing, visual inspection, spinning, filling the wing. The second technique used to hold the controls is referred to as the uncrossed hands technique. Let's go back to the situation where we're facing the wing with the risers crossed in front of you. This time, Jerome takes the left brake handle in his right hand and the right brake handle in his left hand. In other words, the handle located in front of each hand. Then he grasps the risers in front of each hand. Some pilots find it easier to control the wing using this technique. Its one major inconvenience is that the pilot has to momentarily let go of the controls at the important and potentially most dangerous part of the launch, when the pilot makes the turn. The paraglider is a pendulum-like system. In the air, without any stress acting upon it, it will naturally tend towards equilibrium. What this means is that in the air, if the wing recedes behind or advances past the pilot will automatically be brought back under it. Likewise, when the wing swings to the left or to the right, the pilot and his equipment are brought back in line by the pendulum. On the ground, everything is different. If the wing goes one way, the pilot needs to move to get back underneath it. The pilot must act as the pendulum whilst on the ground. During a launch, if your wing rises unevenly, don't panic. It's easy to recover from the situation and make a normal launch. The first thing to do is follow your wing while at the same time trying to correct its course with the opposite brake handle. Once you've managed to get the wing stabilized above your head, you're ready to start your launch run towards the exit corridor. Look at this example with Jerome. His wing is rising unevenly and is abnormally centered in relation to the wind. He'll know from experience to get under the wing while correcting with the brake handles. Having stabilized the wing, he'll be able to spin and start his launch run. As you've just seen, getting the wing to rise evenly depends on how well it is centered in relation to the wind. When launching, use the wind to slightly pre-inflate your wing and check your centering. The two halves of your wing must be at the same height. With experience, turning around will become second nature. However, during our first few inflations, sometimes we're not quite sure which direction to turn. There's an easy way to remember. Look for the riser on top. This is the direction you have to turn. Inflating in strong winds is possible but requires a great deal of skill. A lot of launch accidents occur when strong winds are present. Here's a hint to reduce the force of your wing during the inflation. Only use the central A risers to inflate canopies that are equipped with 4 A risers. This way, only the center of your wing is tensioned while inflating. Its force is reduced. The most important thing is to practice as much as possible inflating on the ground. It'll put you at ease and provide you with all the techniques you'll need during a launch.